Hyvää Juhannusta kuuntelijat. That is happy Midsummer, happy Midsummer's Eve, happy Juhannus, fellow talkers, and welcome to Day Talk on this white night when the sun won't set at all here in the north. And let's welcome our co-host of the week, Mr. A. Tolonen from the band Nest.
Hello, everyone. Seems I'm here again.
Yes, you are, and that's a good thing. You're a fan of Finnish folklore and the nature and the old ways, if I understood correctly.
That is indeed correct, and this time is especially special. And yeah, everything's starting to come alive. Well, it might be a bit late in the season for a lot of people outside of the north, further south, but like only in the last couple of weeks now, all the green has pretty much exploded almost overnight.
That is quite so. The Finnish nature, or the nature in Finland, is in a full bloom, and the summer is just starting or going on.
Where my family is from, a bit further north even from us here, you can still see ice on the lakes even around this time.
So that's somewhere like in the Lapland area, or where?
Almost there. It's the northern parts of Kainuu, a region that no one knows anything about, even inside Finland.
Yeah, well, that's quite far from here south. But yeah, we're talking about Midsummer's Eve. This is our Juhannus speciale, the Juhannus special. Actually, the second episode that we talk about this wonderful celebration of summer and actually fertility. And this is quite an old thing, as we mentioned on our earlier episode on the season 1. You should go back and check it out. You can watch it even after this, because we're going to talk about a different angle here. We're going to talk about more history and the magic that is being performed on this special night. Are you ready to go?
As ready as I'll ever be.
So let's go. As we mentioned in the last episode, I believe, the Juhannus, the Midsummer in Sweden and Finland, is celebrated between the 20th to 26th of June, Saturdays. And you would think that the summer solstice that this is based on isn't situated always on that day, and you would be correct, because this is basically moved here by the government back in the 50s. So it would always be situated on a weekend. So, there wouldn't be any arki, like regular day, working day, holidays.
Yeah, and I'm guessing also liquid refreshments wouldn't interfere with a regular work day.
So the chances are, if you're a Finn or Swede, you're watching this episode from your summer cottage or a rented location, if you're not in the lake or burning bonfires, or even the whole island in this time and age. But let's not worry about the present. Let's go back in history. So actually, as I mentioned, this was the summer solstice originally. And do you remember when the summer solstice actually is this year?
I think it lands on the 21st. Could be mistaken, but it's around that time.
So 21st, it was actually Monday then. So this year we are a bit late from the actual summer solstice.
Well, there's a lot more weekdays than weekend days, so it probably mostly lands on a weekday usually.
So it was already back in the Catholic Church days, when Finland was Christianized, that the Catholic Church moved the summer solstice celebration to 24th of June. That would be exactly 6 months before the Christ's birthday, which we know as Christmas.
Yeah, interestingly enough, you would imagine that Christ's birthday is the day of light, but then the whole opposite end of the year, where the sun actually doesn't set, that ends up being the counterbalance to Christ's birth then, I guess.
Yeah. And now we talk about Christ and God, and this was actually before the Christianity came and changed everything in Finland. Already a sort of a celebration of God, but that was then our Finnish people's original gods, or the old gods, if you will. They celebrated this Ukko, Ylijumala. How would you translate it to English, actually?
Well, that's at the same time, to me at least, very interesting in its mundanity, however you pronounce that word.
Yeah.
But Ukko just literally means an old man, a geezer. And Ylijumala means something like a supreme god, over god, the god of gods.
Yeah, that's the Ylijumala, the supreme god. Sure, because as we have talked in some previous episodes in folklore, mentioned in the sentences there, and in the innuendo, that Finland actually had many gods. Our older generations back before Christianity, there were like spirits and gods and menninkäiset or haltijat, which you would call elves, but don't think about now the Lord of the Rings or whatever Dragonlance from Advanced Dungeons and Dragons or whatever. There were different kind of
these were basically nature spirits of trees, rocks, lakes, spirits of the sky, tutelary spirits that sometimes interacted with humans and others wanted to be completely left alone. And corresponding with the whole season now with Juhannus, where the tradition is to go to the sauna, there was of course a spirit of the sauna.
Well, of course there was. We're Finns after all. But yeah, like those spirits that you mentioned and we mentioned with Dylan back in the day, you had to appease them so they wouldn't mess with you. Basically, if you had you brew ale, let's say, you had to leave some of the ale to these sacred trees or seitas, sacred stones, to basically appease those spirits so they wouldn't fuck up your future endeavors. And in this very same manner, this summer solstice was a celebration of Ukko Ylijumala, and you tried to appease the god of gods, if you will, so he would grant you good luck and fertility with your coming season's crops.
Yeah, good weather and stuff like that. And of course, back in the old days when farming was essential to living, it really mattered that you had good weather for planting, of course, before the midsummer, and then the harvest sometime after.
Yeah, that's right. So now they celebrated this Ukko Ylijumala and fertility in summer solstice, but I believe they celebrated later after the harvest was done. They had this harvest festival in autumn, right?
Yeah, Kekri, like the harvest festival. It seemed like it had gotten largely forgotten in our culture for quite some time, but now I'm glad to see that the tradition has been revived pretty significantly. And I've been to a couple of those celebrations, and as you would expect from our culture, it's a chance to get together and drink and eat. What would be better for a festival, really?
That's right. Basically a Finnish celebration which was already known how to do that back in the day. And you mentioned that this is coming back, this Kekri thing, and I believe you're correct. I think Suomenlinna, the Viapor, the fortress island in front of Helsinki, they have this Kekri celebration every autumn, and I have been in one a few years ago when this pandemic wasn't raging all over the country and the world. So that's pretty interesting. There's a lot of history and a lot of traditions there, and even like sort of live action role playing elements that you can take part of these celebrations, and of course the fires in the night and all that. So let's get back to Juhannus now. And as we mentioned, this was highly important day already back in those old times, because this was the longest day of the year, the summer solstice, and the night that had the most magic around. So the magic was actually believed to live in the nature. I think people believe that it was in the soil and the trees and everywhere, and the magic was at its height on this night. So people tended to spend this night in the nature.
Yeah, and this time of the year, as we already mentioned, how it had something to do with planting and harvesting, as in fertility in the land, but it wasn't just in the land, but this was the night for spells and magic when it came to fertility of humans and getting together with a possible spouse, a wife, husband, and spells relating to achieving those ends.
Yeah, that's right. So let's mention a few different kind of spells or enchantments that one could do. And even, hey, if you're listening this on Midsummer's Eve, or probably before the next Midsummer's Eve, you could take few points and hints here that you could do to maybe boost your chances in the relationship game.
Yeah, my favorite is probably the one where you will get excellent luck in courting if you roll around in the fields at midsummer night naked.
Well, of course. That's a that's a good one, and I think not too many years ago, like a few decades ago, people still did these, and I think people still might do them in the countryside, or at least some communities who are actually believing and worshipping the old ways. I think that is also, along with Kekri, coming back in our culture. At least there's a lot of interest of the old ways of our ancestors these days.
Yeah, I really like this. It is a cultural identity that was almost lost, and it makes me happy to see that it has significant renewed interest nowadays.
Well, you yourself can take part tonight after this episode has finished. You can go on your field there and do the same things yourself. We can take part of this cultural reinvention ourselves. But hey, if you don't want to go out naked, or there's too cold wherever you are, maybe there in the north, you can do some other things to basically guarantee some goodwill from the gods here. And this is one that you should make a crown out of 9 different hays and place it under your pillow. So when you go to sleep, you will dream about your future spouse.
Yeah, that's one for those who don't have anyone in the horizon yet. So that's a good place to start.
Yeah, and well, that's our research what I just said there. But hey, if you want to do it naked, I think there is no one to argue with that either.
Yeah, we're in Finland. There's never a time when you can't go naked.
Yeah, that's right. Always a good time to to get naked. That actually,
I'm naked right now under this.
Yeah, I guess we all are. Okay, so then the next one, and surprisingly, this has something to do with the spouses and relationship game. So if you happen to have well where you are, you should go there in the night and look inside the well, and from the water you can see your future spouse's image.
And even if you don't have a well, you can try that with a pond or a fountain too.
Yeah. So I guess you're in luck if there's water around. You can do that. But if you're married or you're going out with someone, at your own risks, there might be someone else there, and then you will get into trouble.
Yeah, don't mistake windows for ponds.
No. Let's talk about bonfire, because yes, we built the bonfires, and some of us built them even like during the whole year, starting from the autumn. You put there all the, the haze that are left over from the field, maybe, or some, tree trunks or birches or whatever. But do we usually think why we are burning this bonfire in the Midsummer's Eve? Just because we used to do it, or do you actually know why we're doing this?
Well, from what I know, it has a long tradition, not just in Finland, but in Europe in general too, and it's usually connected to agricultural customs. I've personally seen a similar custom firsthand in Lithuania, for example, which reminds me very much of the way we do it in Finland here. It seems to be connected to a grand celebration usually.
Yeah, that's right. The olden times, they used to build these fires, and I believe they burned them on the Easter time and the Kekri time, which we already mentioned. We actually should do an episode solely about Kekri in the future. Would you be interested of coming to that one?
Oh yeah, certainly.
That's great. And the and the May Day. May Day was one of the days too when they burned these fires, and I believe there's plenty of other kinds of like celebrations when for example, the houses put some fire outside of the yard and glazed it long into the night. But yeah, the fires on the Midsummer's Eve is the most popular fire tradition here in Finland, and I believe same goes to Sweden here.
Yeah, it's still going very strong here too. Even if people don't really remember the traditional reasons why they do it, they still do it because it's just part of the midsummer celebration. I certainly remember that happening all throughout my childhood and adulthood too, almost every year.
Yeah, same here, and I always liked it. It was somehow magical, and there was this a mythical feel to it. In the middle of the summer, in the night, when the sun don't set, we are there with the family and extended family and do this huge bonfire. And as we hinted there, maybe all of us don't know why these are, and we don't know that these are actually connected to European cultures. You mentioned Lithuania, the Ireland has this thing, of course, Sweden, the Baltic countries, and even in the Alps, they have been doing these fires. But what did this fire actually mean to our ancestors? And actually, it could mean even today to some, and maybe there's something to it. The fire itself have always been seen as a powerful element that has actually given us a chance to life. We cook our foods there, it gives us warmth and so forth, but this was also seen as a purifying thing.
Yeah, like and you can totally see fire purifying anything it burns. I mean, it just does it very destructively if you let it go too far. But for example, when you were clearing out a field, one of our traditions was to burn the forest in a certain area, and that would release all the nutrients from the trees back into the soil, and you'd have very well nutritioned fertile land for planting for at least a couple of years there, and then you burn down a new plot later and let the old one recuperate. and just went on from there. And yeah, I can imagine how people could have seen fire, especially back in the day when we didn't have any modern conveniences like electricity or indoor plumbing or anything like that, talking about hundreds, thousands of years earlier, when just looking at fire, you think that that could be something supernatural, maybe even a living entity, a spirit of some kind, who has the power to significantly aid you, like you said, bring warmth and light and purification too, in a sense, but at the same time also something that can really hurt you if you don't treat it with respect.
As we all know, the Inquisition and the witch hunters and the witch trials usually ended up on the fires because they purified the witch's soul with fire, and that usually meant by burning them alive. But now when we talk about this fire and the spiritual element, one of the meanings back in the day was to fight evil spirits, because this night was a magical night, and it seemed that the sun has sort of stopped. It doesn't go away, it doesn't go to sleep. So sun has stopped, and people believe that the evil spirits are now having this possibility to roam around and pester people. So one of the meanings of the fire was to protect the people from the evil spirits by scaring them away, because the fire was a purifying element. And while doing those bonfires, you sometimes had to make these loud noises and ruckus, so these restless spirits would actually stay away and wouldn't come to pester you.
Yeah, also works with humans.
Yeah, although in this case people gather around these fires and more so when drunk, so I don't know. No, maybe not this night.
Yeah, maybe. Well, at least when it comes to your people that you actually want to spend time around with.
Yeah, this was actually like connected to in the same way with the winter solstice. Some documents say that they burned fires on the winter solstice, and that was a sort of a similar reason to keep these spirits away. Is it the winter solstice, talvipäivän seisaus?
Yep. Yeah.
When the day is actually the shortest.
Yeah. Aligning, as alluded to before, 6 months apart in the year. So like a lot of these things, they were very seasonal, like these significant times of the year, trying not to be circular here, but you can see these traditions forming on the important days of the year, like when the sun stays up the longest, or when it stays away the longest, and also the times of harvests and planting, and when the nature starts coming back alive again, and where that aligns on the calendar.
That's right. And the idea with this fire then, related to these evil spirits, was also the winter solstice. The sun sort of stopped, because somewhere when you go up north here from Helsinki area, the sun might not appear at all on that day.
Yeah, correct. And if you go far enough, the sun doesn't appear for like months, but of course there's always some light shining from beyond the horizon, so you will notice at what point it's even darker than usual. And then when it starts getting brighter again, it's like everything's starting to come back alive again, like a rebirth theme.
Yeah, and then we have a Midsummer's Eve, the summer solstice, and so forth. But yeah, of course, that wasn't the only thing. We go back to fertility with the meaning of this fire, and the premonitions, the magic that you could do. You could also see someone that you could have a future with, illuminating from the flames. I hope you weren't drunk and that person was actually in the flames, but you know.
Yeah, and hopefully you didn't dive after an apparition that you thought that was really in the flames.
Yeah.
it can happen with the liquid encouragement we're known to have at that time, even more so than other times.
Yeah. So, few historical facts here. This tradition came to this main part of Finland from the eastern part of Finland. So I guess the first fires to this purpose were erected in Karelia regions back in the day.
Yeah, that would make sense because at least from what I remember, the agricultural conventions and traditions came to Finland through that direction too, from the Baltics and from the east, because there's a land way to get to here through there. Otherwise, you'd have to cross the sea to Sweden, and back a couple of thousand years ago, who's going to make that journey with a rowboat?
And as we mentioned, this is quite an old custom and belief. So the first literal tracks of this custom were found from Turku's library from 1645, when we were part of the Swedish kingdom. And already before that, the 30-year war had happened. And I believe that this custom was even hundreds of years older than this first literal trace that we were able to find.
Yeah, it makes sense that you probably wouldn't record the first ever instance of something happening too often, so it has to have been going on for quite some time, especially when it comes to a tradition like this, which is so significant that it involves a lot of people and groups and various forms of celebration and like conventions, like all the marriage related rituals that accompany it.
All of you people there who are celebrating Juhannus at the moment, have a nice one, have a safe one, don't drown, don't burn down your house or your island. Come back alive, watch more of our episodes. Thank you to Mr. Tolonen to take a part of this, and we'll be doing more episodes with you in the future for sure.
No, I'm up for that. Have a good one, everyone.
Have a good one, and before you go, please leave us a like. It would help our channel's visibility. The algorithm would boost it, and all of our fellow talkers out there who still haven't seen us talk would maybe hear from us. Hit that subscription button, leave a comment what is your favorite way of spending Juhannus, and hit that notification bell so you won't miss any of our future Friday episodes. See you next Friday.